Hello and welcome to the Three Will Podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, and today I have Khanh Hoang with me. I'm going to butcher your name. I apologize about that.
That's okay.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to do that, right?
That is correct.
Okay, that is correct. Khanh is a senior consultant. Got that right too?
That's correct.
All right, I remember that from our first episode, which was, I'm surprised you're back in this room again, that you're willing to come in here and do this again. I appreciate that, though.
No problem.
I wanted to do a follow-up. I know one of the things we were real excited about was your experience with SharePoint migrations, and in particular, I know you've got some exposure to some of the different tools that are out there. And for this episode, I wanted to focus in on Metalogix content matrix as a product. Can you get us started with just sort of a high level? What is the product? What does it do? What's its sweet spot?
Okay. So there are many ways of doing migrations in SharePoint. If you're on premise, you can do database attach, which don't require a tool. But if you go into SharePoint Online, or if you're skipping versions, say migrating from SharePoint 2007 to SharePoint 2013, then you need to leverage a migration tool.
Okay.
So Content Matrix is a migration tool that basically points to the source where the original site is, and then it points to the destination. And then with the configuration in between, it moves the data, the workflows from one environment to another. Okay,
great. So it's a migration tool that allows you for more complex migrations, you would use it as a product to do those migrations.
That's right.
Describe to me what's typical. So you've used it on projects before in the past to help clients migrate.
Yes, I use on a number of projects in the past to help with migrations.
Tell me what does that look like? Do you sort of the process of using a tool like Content Matrix? Starting that project off, are you doing like something where you get a sort of an inventory of the environment first, just to sort of get a peek at it? Can you use it to do that?
Yeah. So when you point it to your source environment, it will display kind of a hierarchy of your site structures. Different site collections, different subsites, your list, your libraries, your actual documents inside your libraries. So you can see at a high level what your content layout would look like.
Okay.
And then you can pick and choose from which sites or which libraries you want to move, or you want to move the entire site collection.
Okay.
And then it's pretty much drag and drop, or you set up your path for the data flow, and then you can even export it out as a script and then schedule it to run.
Nice.
So you can do the migration off hours.
Okay.
That way, you don't take up the bandwidth for the network.
Nice, very nice. So it sounds a little bit like, I guess, like you do a little analysis of what the environment is, and then depending upon what type of migration, I've heard people use the term like lift and shift versus more of like I don't know what the alternative, like reorganizing your data. You probably have to work with clients to figure out what's the right approach for them to go after.
Yeah, there are some companies that invest in the time upfront to go ahead and reorganize their structure for the SharePoint data, and then they go in with a tool to migrate. And then there are some companies that don't want to do a reorg because it disrupts the business.
Okay.
So they'll just pick up everything, move it over there, and then they'll clean it up later.
Okay.
And then before they go live, before they release to users.
Does it do anything? How does I guess with like people who have current links to the site, and when it moves over to the new site, how would you handle like remapping URLs and stuff like that?
You can do redirections.
Okay.
There are some intelligence built in that would do a link correction.
Okay.
So if there's any hard coded link, it will try to correct that. It's not 100% foolproof.
Okay.
So you want some kind of verifications afterward, but generally you either reuse the URL, and that way the users feel like it's a seamless transition.
Okay.
Or you try to use the link correction tool and then verify manually and correct where you can.
Okay. And so then you you end up scheduling these over a time in which you won't impact, I guess, the business as far as the migration itself. Those would you usually schedule it like on weekends, or what would be the typical thing? And were migrations, would they typically take hours, days? What was a typical migration like?
It depends on the size of the environment and the amount of data you would have. Larger companies, usually they would roll it out and do the migration in phases. Say HR department, they will do a migration one weekend, and then the next weekend they'll do IT and operations. On smaller migrations that can be done either after hours or one of the weekends, that you would want to set your old environment on read only, like Friday night, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., whenever business closed, and then run the migration and then redirect the URL on Monday morning. That way when users comes in on Monday morning, they'll take them to the new site.
Very nice. I know we've been using Content Matrix on a big project here that was even before you started here, where we did a lot of scripting and a lot of, I think, communications to site owners and lots of things along those lines. I know one of the things that seems to be key is once you've done the migration is going through, either have a remediation or sort of a QA type of process that you're going through once it's been moved over. That's a pretty common thing for you to go
Yeah,
through?
that's typical. For a migration, you want to come back and do verification, and generally we call it post-migration cleanup.
Okay.
There are gonna be some custom development that was put into a site, or change of a master page or something like that, and it will cause problems on a particular site. And you go through and verify and manually either fix it or do the migration for that particular site over. Make sure you have all your document counts correct. You got 100 documents from the source library. You want to make sure you have 100 documents on the destination. So there are quite a few post-migration activities that have to take place before you can release it live.
Very nice, very nice. From using it across multiple projects, any sort of tips that you have maybe for someone? I wanted this episode sort of, keeping it at a high level, just for someone who maybe started using Content Matrix, that you would share with them.
Yeah, so the best thing to do is planning. Go in, see what you have, see what you want to migrate, because you want to communicate that to the user, make sure they are prepared for the new release, that there's no interruptions in the business. So the more you can understand about how much data and what type of data you have that you want to migrate, the better. That way you can plan for a successful migration.
Very nice. And does it tell you, like, let's say if you're trying to do maybe a little bit of pruning, like when the last time someone accessed this site, or how sort of some analytics around some of the different sites? Does it give you any of that type of information at all?
Content Matrix doesn't do that. Metalogix do have other tools that can provide that kind of statistics on a site or a particular document, and you want to look at that. You want to see high traffic areas, and you want to see that way you can plan for business interruptions. So the other tools we can talk about another time.
Good. Okay. Our next episode we can talk about maybe some of those tools. That's awesome. So that's a good point. This is one of a series of tools from Metalogix for different purposes, and you've got some experience as well with some of those other migration.
Yes.
Or are they all they're? It sounds like I guess from some of the materials, it's not just migration; it's other things as well.
Yeah, Content Matrix is just one of the tools from Metalogix, and they have Control Point, and they have other tools that can do a wide variety of specific purposes for SharePoint.
That's great. So this will give us maybe we'll do one on Control Point, or whichever one you wanted to do next.
I just signed up for another podcast, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, you did. Maybe you did. That's great. So some of the resources that you used maybe to learn more about using it, was it just Googling and finding what people put out there, or were there any particular resources that you used quite a bit?
Content Matrix does pretty well out of the box. It's pretty easy to use, but Metalogix has a great support team. They have forums. They have their help section on their site that's great. I always try to Google when I get stuck on something, but you have to be careful with what you try. What you find on Google, and just simply try it out. You want to do this in a dev environment. You don't want to do this in a final production environment.
I don't want this to become a comparison, but what's the difference between, I know you've probably used ShareGate quite a bit as well, and AvePoint. Have you used AvePoint at all in the past?
A little bit.
Yeah. What if you had to classify, again, I'm not, just sort of at a high level for someone like me, how would you classify them as being different? The different products, are they more suited towards different types of migrations, or what would you say?
Well, every tool is designed for migration purpose. So they're all in the same class. They will all move your documents, your library, your permissions. ShareGate to partner with Nintex. So if a client has Nintex workflows, they tend to lean toward ShareGate because it's supported natively. But Content Matrix support moving of workflows as well. It's the licensing is different on each side. So there's one advantage over the other to go. Just depend on the amount of data and your licensing. Configurations, they're similar, but there's some advanced capability from one side versus the other.
Yeah, I know for us, I think we ended up using Content Matrix because some of the scripting stuff that you were mentioning earlier, because we had to really, and also they had something about some pipeline or something. Tommy mentioned this, I think, on a past episode, but there was just, we felt like we were going to get more of the throughput that we needed. That was more looking at AvePoint versus Metalogix. So I think it's funny. You may be on a project just like that large project where the client's going to ask us sort of which one do you lean towards, and which one would you say we should use for this project. Yeah,
and that's where the planning would come in. You would take a look at your environment, what you have, what you want to move, the amount of data, and then you would pick the tool based on the requirements.
Very good. Anything else that through the years that you picked up that if you were trying to give some advice maybe to someone starting out with this, with Content Matrix, that you'd give them?
There's one particular scenario that came to mind. If you have Bamboo, look up Selector, which is the cascading drop-down selections. That causes a little bit of issues back when I was using it to migrate 2007 to 2013 for one of the clients, because it's a custom columns that it required extra effort to make it work. But eventually we got it to work. It just a little bit more effort and time put in. So if you have third-party solutions or customizations, you want to look out for those and make sure you plan ahead and make sure you address them properly.
I think that always, that's probably stopping right now a lot of folks from moving over to the cloud, is because they've got third-party web parts or different products that they're relying upon. Even some of the products like Nintex, this isn't about Nintex, but it does more stuff on-prem versus in the cloud, and so waiting for the point in which it's right for you to make that move keeps a lot of people on-prem right now, it seems like.
And you want to make sure your current environment is not using a deprecated feature in the new environment. So the migration tool can only do so much, but if the feature is not there in the new environment, there's not much you can do about it.
So what's interesting is this seems like what this migrations, which we're definitely doing a lot of it as a hot topic right now for us. We're trying to get people to move to the cloud where there is no more migrations, right? So it's one of those things. It's a little bit like this is the final migration. It's you're moving people over for the last time. We're not going to have these 3 years cycles where you're going through these sometimes very painful migrations. You looking forward to that day where everybody's moved over, or you want to move on to different things, or you really enjoy this type of work?
I enjoy migrations, but going to the cloud, it's new, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's less maintenance.
Yeah.
But the customizations you have to do to get you back to equivalent of on-prem, because there are some limitations with SharePoint Online.
Yeah.
But it won't be the last migration, I hope. there'll be other works outside of migrations after that.
Yeah.
So
well, I think we're still seeing, depending upon, especially with the size of the clients that we're typically working with, they're really going hybrid. I mean, they're still having some on-prem and some in the cloud, and so therefore there will be some migration work for the on-prem piece.
Exactly.
So I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but may not shed too many tears too when smaller clients have moved over, and we now maybe can focus in on the Nintex workflow stuff a little bit more and just sort of spread out to different types of activities. I know for us, it's funny, we're more app dev, so we in the past have done a lot of app dev, and this whole shift over to the cloud has stopped people from doing a lot of app dev because they're the uncertainty of where do we build it, what type of app do we build, and all that sort of stuff. And I know Microsoft's prescribing certain things for us to do, but in the meantime, we're having to migrate, and we're really trying to get people over so that we can build these apps.
Right.
And that's it's still coming in a couple of years, and so it's sort of the sweet spot for what a lot of people around here are looking forward to, is the day that they are moved over to the cloud.
Correct.
And they are over. So I appreciate you helping us with helping clients make the move over, and thank you for taking the time today. We definitely have a follow-up on some of the other Metalogix tools, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this, Khanh.
Thank you.
You betcha. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.